Here we are. So, welcome everybody. It's lovely to be here tonight and celebrate with the absolutely gorgeous Janette Mckeague. And we're celebrating not your first, not your second,
No.
your third book that you've actually published.
Yeah, my third book in
Your third book.
3 years.
There we are. So hold up your book so that we can see Exploring the Countryside. There we are. And it is the Children's Dynamic Knowledge Book. Fantastic. Look at that.
So pleased with it.
So what we're going to talk about tonight is we're just going to kind of have a little bit of a chat about your journey, about your experience, and all the things that you love about the countryside. And we're really going to start with you just reading the introduction to your book, because that just helps set the tone for what this is about, and then we're going to have a conversation about all the stuff that comes after that.
Okay. The introduction for the Children's Dynamic Knowledge Book. Welcome to your book, Exploring the Countryside. In this book, Farmer Shaki, also known as Davy, and I will show you and tell you about our magnificent countryside and environment, including its animals and land. We will explain how he and the other farmers look after the land and provide a food source for their animals, for you and everyone else. Follow us as we harvest grass, food, and the crops grown in the land, and you will discover how much of it ends up in the food chain, then moves into the shops for sale or for us to buy directly from the farmers, and then eventually ends up on your plate for you to eat. The animals we breed to provide food, from milk and eggs to the meat you eat, are all part of this exciting journey. With our fantastic friendly countryside animals and a few things that help save the environment and are good for the planet, we will keep you guessing what is coming next. As you turn the pages, and you will gain more knowledge and discover what keeps the countryside rolling and our animals moving, including our magnificent birds of prey flying over the land. A farmer's work is never ending, and tomorrow is just always another day. Enjoy your dynamic book, Janette and Shaki.
Fabulous. Great start. There you are. A great start. Thank you for doing that.
Hi, Susan. I just seen Susan come in here.
Yep. Susan joined. She sneaked in. So what I wanted to ask you, Janette, then is, where did this passion for the countryside, come from? Because that's really what comes across with you, is just this passion for all of these animals, nature, and everything.
I think it all started when I was really small, because the first things I remember, usually a Sunday or something like that, my dad, we need these old cars. We used to, my brothers and sisters, there was 8 of us, and usually a Saturday or Sunday, sometimes we would get taken out the car and go a run out in the countryside. And I think basically from then, it was just a real love of seeing everything different than living in a house and scheme and things like that. And then obviously as I got older, I used to run cross country over the fields and everything, and it was amazing. I always loved that in my races. And then obviously through the time, as I got older, got a pony for my daughter, and then got my own horse, that's when it really came that I really, was enjoying it and wanted to learn more, especially having the farm, and I lived on the farm. Because although riding Seskia, my first horse, Minstrel, out the country roads and along the farm, you always wanted to wonder what was going on, before we were at our own farm. And then when I got there, with not knowing a lot about the land and things, I had to learn. So I think it all just developed through time, and I get more interested and wanted to know more.
So what is it that then really kind of inspires you to make sure that the children know this? What is it that's really kind of like fight behind you now?
Well, I think back to when I was young, and when, as I say, when we used to go out the countryside, you would see things, and even the land and the country roads that you would never see if you were out with and you didn't have transport and things like that. And I think it's really important for the children to understand that the countryside's there for everyone to enjoy, but they can learn about it with reading, like exploring the countryside. Because when I used to do my training in the writing school, and I used to teach the adults and the children, and they would go through their wee TRSS exams, where Susan was from, the Trek and Ride Society of Scotland. So they had to do their riding and have their country knowledge. And just with riding out, it was amazing seeing their faces when they used to see like the birds of prey and everything like this. So from the enjoyment they got about learning about the trees and the changing seasons, I just always wanted to try and put this into some form of learning otherwise for the children. And that's why this book came about.
So, and it's great. I mean, I think what you've shared is, like you said, there are so many different components to it, isn't there? It's
Yeah.
not just well, here's a little story about the countryside. It's really an opportunity for them to learn about, like you said, where your food comes from. You know,
Yeah.
so I mean, what you said about a day in the farmer's life is never done. So what is it like then? Can I give us a little bit of a flavour then of kind of farming life at this time of the year as we're heading into autumn? What's going on in the farms just now?
Well, basically, just now, well, through the year, they're always changing the animals about, like the sheep and the cows are being bought and sold, and changing them over basically all the time. And obviously now going into like the autumn and in the winter months, they've obviously got to look after the land more, because the land's getting a wee bit more wetter and more animals on it. They need to watch and move them about and everything. And obviously the food in the fields decrease with the grass dying off. So they've got to put more hay and stuff eventually into the fields, or haylage, for feeding them. So there's a lot of work like that, and maintaining the fields, especially the drains, which is one of Shaki's main jobs all the time. And we actually got 2 pictures of him this time in the book doing his drain work and the ditches as well. So there's a lot of things like that need to go on, and fixing the fencing, and just obviously all the crop time is finished with cutting the hay and haylage, and they've got it all stacked up. So it's now maintaining everything, and just every day going around checking stuff and fixing and doing more jobs.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like you think of when you live in your house, you look and you think, oh, there's always something to do. But when you're
Yeah.
actually living on a farm, I mean, it is just, it is, like I say, literally never ending, because
That's it. Yeah.
the animals
So with,
don't decide to have a holiday. You've got to kind of make
yeah,
sure you're
that's
looking
it.
after
And
them.
then, yeah, and on top of the animals, you've got all the machinery, in the sheds and everything. Like, all the farmers have to maintain all the time. So it's just not never ending. I keep saying to Shaki, he makes himself jobs, but he's like, there's jobs that need to be done.
So you've said as well about the being wanting for the kids to understand where their food comes from.
Yeah.
Um, as a child, were you aware? I mean, I suppose, were you aware of what was sort of coming onto your plate, and
No,
where
I don't actually think so. And the more I learned as I started, even when you just eat it, that I honestly must admit, I never ever used to think, oh, this comes from this, and look into it and everything. So no, I would say I was more aware as you get older, but I think it's important the young children learn, because then they're more aware of what to eat with their parents. If their parents say, oh, don't eat it, they're more able to eat it and things. And I think they're interested more when they find out where it actually comes from, instead of just thinking it comes from the shop.
So do you think that, I mean, you had a book launch, as you were saying, in the library, and you had some children
Oh,
came along
yeah.
to the
Oh, that
library.
was really good. That was in the Alexandria Library just on Monday at 3:30, just the other
Yeah.
day. And I had been in contact with the libraries about doing an author talk for them, especially with my new book, Exploring the Countryside. And they emailed me back, and Alison was lovely from the library, Western Bartonshire Libraries, and they asked me to do the first talk of the Monday of the week for the Green Libraries Week that's on this week. And because the book was about the farmers, the land, and the food and all this, they really wanted, you know, to do a talk. And I was glad Deborah, which is with us tonight, my editor, she came as well. So I was like, yes, a wee bit of backup. But it was so good. There was only a few parents there, maybe 3 or 4 parents and a few children. But it was such a good afternoon. The lady from the library sat in as well. I'd done a bit of reading, and then we asked questions, but the questions that actually came from the children were really good. You know, they wanted to know what the farmers done. They wanted to know about the cows, what type of cows gave them the milk, you know, and when I printed out the meat chart for them, and I gave them a copy of the meat chart, which is in the book, and I showed them the limousine and the Charlie cows where the picture of the field that I printed off for them. And they were really quite amazed that these things actually came from these animals. Some of them knew. And then when I was talking about in the book, there's things that have the same name, but they're actually different meanings. Like the farmers market, as we're talking about to the children, is like the auction market, one of the farmers markets where they take the animals and they buy and sell them. And eventually they could end up going into the food chain for meat. So we're talking about that. And then the other farmers market, which is where you can go and buy your fresh vegetables, your fruit, your meat, and all things like this. So the book's got a wee twist in it like that it shows them different things with same names, but it means different. So I was trying to keep it nice for the children. And this little boy turned around and I said, you know, when they eventually go for meat, and he said, what, they go to the slaughterhouse? And he's like, and it was actually quite funny. And I looked at Deborah and I was like, well, maybe we'll call it the abattoir. So, but there was quite a few funny things that the children said, but they were really eager to ask questions and find out about what happens. And not only with the farmers, just about everything, you know, in the countryside.
Yeah. And that's a really great example, I suppose, of you know, just why your book's needed.
Yeah.
And it opening up those kind of conversations,
Yes.
you know, for children. So what do you hope will happen with your book? You know, what are you hoping to kind of to get it out there? What would you love to see?
I would really love to spend the time with this book. Usually after each book, I go straight on because I've already started my next book and I've already got it done before one's published. But this time I'm taking like a good year out because I really want to market this book, because I really feel that there's something in this book. I've got a good feeling about it. And everybody that I've shown when I've been into different shops to try and put it in for sale, and when they look through it, because of all the different things it's actually got, everybody has been saying they haven't seen a book like this, you know, with the content in it. So I really do hope to try and get into schools and do different talks and projects for the children as well on the different bits throughout the book.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's a great resource for, you know, for teachers that are doing anything around, like you said, whether it's about animals, whether it's about how the farms are, whether it's about seasons, countryside, the food, as well as you were saying just about the kind of sustainability side of things and the kind of, you know, it's really important now for you know, for the children to realise, you know, what happens and, you know, that and how things are going, because we're looking for them to fix all the mistakes of us adults have made for years. You know?
That's right. And there is bits in the book as well, like they start to read the book, and the way I've done the book is when they start to read it, they think they're reading a wee story, but then it changes and it gives them some information. And throughout the book, there's different things that it says, did you know? And then it gives them facts about things. So it's a good way to get them to read, but they're actually learning as they're reading, because it's giving them information that they might not pick up just walking through the countryside or out playing. And at least with this book, they can, if they're driving in the countryside out in the car, going for a long drive, they could have that book and look out the window and see things and go, oh, this is what that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's not just a bale of straw. There's maybe food that's came from that bale of straw before it goes to the animals. You know, so it's just all things like that.
Yeah. I mean, what I love is just your passion just like shines. That's the thing, is that when you just kind of get that whole sense, which was the same when we first started talking about Sesky, and you were doing doing that book, and then when you did your other children's book, the kind of Sesky Farmyard Friends, the passion that you have for all of this stuff just really oozes.
Oh, thank you.
And I think that's the thing that's then, if people get to see you, so obviously we're recording this tonight, but
Yes,
it's the opportunity for people to hear you speak and to ask the questions,
that's right.
so that they can so they've got a book, but they can actually hear from you.
Yes,
Because that really helps, I think, to bring this book really to life.
Because the exploring the countryside, like, we've kind of rated that about 8 to 12-year-olds. But the feedback, as I was saying, that I've had from the parents and even the children when they look through the book, and then at the back of the book as well, I've put in some country code tips, to help the children when they're out in the countryside, so they know what to do or what not to do as well. So it's not to stop them having fun, but it's just a safety aspect to being in the countryside, and like not to go in the field, to get something if like the tractors are working or there's machinery or animals that look nice but might not be. So there's all wee things kind of added in throughout the book.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's just, I think that's like you've got a huge resource there, and not just you haven't just split it down into here's one topic. You've taken a lot of things and put them together. So in terms of sort of wildlife and plants, and you talked there about the sort of birds of prey sort of flying, and I know that you've got a passion for the kind of birds of prey, and you've been along to the Birds of Prey Centre.
That all started when I used to ride Sesky out in the fields on myself or taking treks out, and then the birds would be sitting on the fence, and then they would just fly up and fly away, and you get such a fright. But the tourists and everybody and myself would get such a surprise to see them. So I've always loved all the different types of birds of prey, and the owls that we used to have in the shed at the farm as well. So I went down to the Birds of Prey Centre to actually experience one of the flying days. And that was just tremendous, because I wanted to feel what it was like to be right up close to them, because I wrote about them in the book, and I got lovely pictures of the bird of prey from the Loch Lomond Bird of Prey Centre, and they gave me a lot of information about the birds, which I didn't know, so that was really helpful. But I just wanted to experience it because I had written about it, and I thought I need to do this like proper. So I did that, which was really good. I would highly recommend it.
And I think that's what you're doing in your book. That's what I'm saying about your enthusiasm. It's you experiencing all aspects of, like looking after the animals, looking after the farm, kind of being in amongst things, and that comes through. It comes through in your pictures. As Deborah just the pictures in Facebook were really good. It comes through in the photographs, as well as the like the information that you're sharing.
I think it was just always a passion that I wanted to try and bring the countryside to life, you could say, through this book for the children, so that if they don't get to the countryside, until a lot of different times they can go, but it lets them understand and get the enjoyment out of reading about what happens and seeing the different animals, because we go through even right down to like the spider's web being created in the countryside. If you look, you'll see things. You'll see things. So it's just everything that's fascinating, about animals, the countryside, the farms, just everything.
So have you got a favorite animal?
Oh, of course, the horse. No, but other than the horse, I love the belter cows, like the black and white belter. That is one of my favorites. But out in the countryside, I would say I love seeing the deer running about.
Right.
They are so good, and the way they run and just jump the fences, it's just so elegant, and the speed of them. But I do love seeing them about the countryside.
We used to have when we lived in Bishopbriggs, we used to have the deer regularly. I would meet them on the canal bank when I was taking the dog, and you realise as well. You just kind of walk and suddenly turn around and here's a deer in front of you. So,
I know.
Because we do see them. I mean, I suppose that's part of the issue as well, is that there's a lot of building going on. I mean, the towns are encroaching more and more on the countryside, and the animals are then
Yeah,
that are sort of pushed out a little bit. And so this kind of like just getting children aware and interested early on.
yeah, that's right.
Hopes, because I suppose what you hope is that they become more interested in what's going on and more aware that they think, well, actually, these are things to be protected and to be looked after.
That's right. Yeah.
So, um,
Yeah.
Deborah's just saying as an arachnophobe, the spider section was a challenge to edit. So I
Oh.
suppose, is there anything in um as you've been out and about in it, I mean, whether it's been on the farm or the work that you've been involved in with that you find difficult? Is there any part of it that you would say that's a challenge for you then, Janette?
Well, I'm not really involved as much now in the kind of farming side of it, but I think through all the time when I did of the farm, the horses and helping Shaki with the sheep and all things like that, I think it's just the whole upkeep of everything and looking after the animals to make sure they're in good condition, they're well fed, and you've got to keep everything turning over all the time because
Mhm.
it is a hard job. I know other jobs are hard too, but the farming side of it are like horses and having different places like that. It doesn't matter what the weather's like, you've just always got to get out there and do it, even if you're not feeling right at all. So I think that was a hard side of it for me,
Mhm.
and seeing the Shaki and his workers and that work through the winter with the animals and everything, and other farmers too, because they've
Yeah,
just got to keep going.
yeah, yeah. So that kind of challenge, that outdoor. I mean, do you like an outdoor life? I mean, is that something that you would say that it's there in you, even though it wasn't as a young
Yeah.
child, just
Yeah, I think I love the outdoors. I think from when I used to do my running and when I was in primary school, I used to be a runner and I was outside all the time and doing cross country running. I think that's where it all came from. I just loved being outside all the time. And
Mhm.
then obviously when I get involved in horses and moved to the farm and everything like that, and even after that, when I moved away, still teaching out with and being outside with the horses. I just think it's fantastic. And when you get the time to go and visit the countryside, or not even the countryside, just in your garden, even, and you see the different wee butterflies and flowers growing, just everything like that. I think it's just incredible.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing. You've inspired us all with all the little elements of things that we needed to learn and understand. But I mean, as you said, the horses are obviously been your true passion that was there.
Yeah,
That was there. And I find it quite interesting, like you said, that a lot of this came from you teaching the children that you were teaching in your
yes,
school, about the horses, about
yeah.
the countryside and different things. And suddenly, you are now really writing and producing a book about all of that because of what you were doing back
I
with.
know that's right. Because even before we started doing the TRSS exams, like for the countryside code and all things like this, when we used to take them out in the treks, just walking with like the young children or even some adults, and like we went up the back road one day, and there was a cow giving birth to calf in the field. And one of the wee boys is like, yuck, because he stayed in London and never ever seen this. So we're quickly walking on with the trek, saying to the mum, do you want them to see that or not? So
Yeah.
it's just like from wee things like that, and then teaching them about other things away from that, about the trees changing and the autumn and all these things. Then it was good to put it into the training for exams for them as well. And
Yeah.
it was amazing when they passed their exam and they knew what they wanted, and they knew what they wanted to do later to go to the
Yeah.
next exam. So no, it's important. And even for children that aren't doing training exams, it's good for them just for living, and knowing what they can do and
Hmm.
what they can achieve from going out just walking. Because
Yeah.
we're always in a rush sometimes and we just drive through the country or walk doing our steps, but half the time you don't take time just to look and see what there is. So I
Hmm.
think it's good to let them see.
Yeah. And probably that is it's not even just as the children. I think what you've reminded us, that even me as an adult, I'll speak about myself,
Yeah.
is that yeah, you would go about a day and
Uh-huh.
you know, there's so many, you know, there are so many animals and things around about us. And we don't necessarily really kind of pay attention to. I mean, you obviously you just want
That's,
them to
I
walk in a
know.
dog, then we spot a spot,
Uh-huh.
you know, but the you know what we actually see and you know in nature.
Yeah, uh-huh.
And as you know, you know, I've got it on my doorstep because I'm
I
literally
know,
at
that's
the,
right.
you know,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
at the bottom of the hill here with stuff. So,
Uh-huh.
so
Because
yeah,
that's actually funny because the spider's web that's actually in the book, when I talk about the things that glisten in the what do you call it, the frost and everything,
yeah,
that was actually at the oak tree when I worked there. And Agnes will verify, we've got to go out and we clean the spider webs away and everything. And this one was just so perfect on the back of one of the chairs, and I was like, I need a picture of that before I clean it away. And I actually didn't clean it, it was too good, so I took the picture of it. And that's where that picture was actually from, because it was just so fascinating seeing all the whole web and the way it was done. It was amazing.
yeah.
So that was my picture, always kept of that.
Because I think, you know, we've looked at you know, the shows that have been on TV, you know, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Attenborough, I mean, he's just like amazing with his, you know, what he talked about, all the animals and things that he's done, and
Mm-hmm.
brought, you know, so many of us interested in you know, in nature and things. And I think that this what you're able to do with this is just, you know, you've got a little slice of that kind of like that job as well then to kind of
Yeah,
inspire more
uh-huh.
people to start looking at things
Uh-huh.
a
That's
little more
right.
close to home, the things that we can find and we can see, you know, all the time. So,
Yeah.
um,
Uh-huh. That's right.
so you've just had another guest arrive. So sorry, sorry, I've just muted you because we're so that we didn't hear your chat going on. So yes, if anybody's got any questions, if there's anything you want to ask Deborah, then Deborah, sorry, you can ask Deborah if you like. What was it like to edit when you don't really like talking? If there's anything you want to ask Janette, then just you can put it in the chat, and we can see if
I
there's
think
anything.
I think one of the things with Deborah was with me the other day at the book launch on Monday at the library. And Deborah didn't know, but I said, I'm going to introduce you to Deborah, my editor. And I got her up to say a few words. And then when we were just finishing that off and talking about the book, one of the wee boys, he said, can I ask you something, Janette? And I said, of course. And he went, are you famous? And I was like, no. I said, I'm just like you. I'm not famous. And then they were asking us, like, can anybody be an author? And I said, of course, if you want to be an author, you can be an author, you know. So, but the questions that were really funny when they said different things, it was interesting for them as well. But it was a nice reaction from them that they were so interested, you know.
That's what Deborah had just put. So how famous are you? So obviously
But that was so funny when that wee boy said that. I was like, I'm just as famous as you.
I think that's the thing is that maybe we forget, you know, just you know, that's it. You've written and published 3 books, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's something to still inspire, you know, like kids as well to say, well, yeah, you can, you know, you can write, you
Uh-huh.
can do stuff and you
Yeah.
can tell stories. And you can also
Uh-huh.
write about the things that you just know, you know, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
The things that you
Yeah, I know, that's
know.
right. Uh-huh.
So Deborah says, which way do the female Highland cows have horns point?
that was a question. One of the boys that was there, he said he loved Highland cows, and I said, "Well, if you look in our book," I said, "we've got a great picture of the Highland cows." Wait till I find her. Oh my goodness, I won't be able to find her. And the wee boy said to me, he was asking about the horns, and he said, "What way do the horns go?" So there, she's there,
You
and
need to
that's
hold up a
Shona.
wee bit so we see the picture. Right, there we go. Yep,
She's bred for showing, and she's Shona the third of Gartaharn, and she's a
Right.
3-year-old female Highland cow because she's the third calf born from her mother, and that's where she gets the names from. So they asked us, what way do they have horns? And as you see there, the female horns go
Hold
up
it,
the
hold it a
way.
bit, up a wee bit. That's it. We can see the picture now.
The
Yep, yep.
female Highland cow's horns go up the way,
Right.
whereas the male ones go slightly down and forward. So they asked us this, and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm glad I looked at it. Because I didn't actually know the full difference of them, and that their horns are very important when they go in the showing ring as well to be judged.
There you are, you were getting tested then
I
by
know.
your audience.
I know.
So, was there anything that you needed to research when writing the book?
Oh, definitely. Shaki was getting his brain nicked all the time because on the finer points to do with the farm, oh my goodness, now I can't even remember what ones, but I was always asking Shaki questions and about the drainage, about the clay pipes, and that was a thing when we were editing as well, where there was a bit of a change back and forward with Deborah and I. But I was asking Shaki, why does he prefer to use the clay piping, for the drainage? And he was saying because it's better for the environment. And if it's old clay piping left broken under the ground, it doesn't affect the soil and all things like this. But I was forever asking him questions. But the birds of prey was the biggest thing that I had to research. But because I do a lot with the Loch Lomond Bird of Prey Centre, and they gave me a lot of information, which they gave me all different parts, and I put it into a story from their wording and things, and I just took bits that I needed that I thought were relevant for the children. And then I kind of read a lot more into it myself so that if any of the children asked me questions, I would know. So that was a big bit of the book. But obviously as well, going by the oats and the barley and how much of the food it's involved in and the drink side of it and everything. So I did have to look into a lot of that as well, just to make sure I had it correct. And Deborah kept me correct too.
And that's the thing, isn't it? When you start, so you've got a passion for something, you're
Yeah.
showing the knowledge that you have. But I think what always interests me, Janette, about yourself, since I've got to know you, is that you are forever learning. You're constantly kind of looking to see, well, what can I learn? What can I learn? And when you get something that you're putting together like this in the book, that you're going, I'm making sure that I've gone off to double check
Oh,
something.
definitely.
And
Yeah,
yeah.
because I don't, when I'm writing it, then I'll look up, and Shaki keeps saying to me, that I Google everything if I'm not sure. And if I ask him a question, he's telling me the answer, but I'm still Googling it to make sure it's the correct wording. So it's quite funny. But yeah, I always like to make sure that I've got it correct, and then obviously our editor, as Deborah, she was great with me as well. And we kind of swapped things about a wee bit just to make it, I maybe put a bit too much information in and we took some out. So no, it's really interesting, And I think this book, I feel it was a lot harder to do than the other two. I don't know why, but it just seemed an awful lot more work getting put into it. But I think it was the way I wanted it, as Sinclair knows, with the layout and the design. I was like, no, that's got to go here, not there. And it was just, it had to kind of go in the order for it to make sense, because I wanted it as the children were reading. Then when they went on to the learning part without knowing it, as I put in the different things of did you know and gave them different information, then I thought, right, they might be getting bored, and I went on to another kind of story bit where it kind of went through, and I kept it going like that so they wouldn't get fed up in the book.
Yeah, yeah.
So there was a lot of work in it, but I'm delighted with it.
But I think that's probably also, as you come to, like this has been your third book, you've got more of a sense of what it is that you really want. And
Yeah.
and I know that you'd spoken about this book,
Oh,
for a while. So it's
well,
been in your mind for a while, it's been in your thoughts for a while.
this
So
this book in 2015, when I was in Shaki's kitchen, I remember I had a big box of all my training stuff and everything like this and all the books, and he was sitting having his tea one day or something one afternoon, and I put all the stuff out on the table. It was all my learning stuff, the TRSS that I'd done for the children. And I said to him, one day I'm going to turn this into a book. I said, I don't know how, but I'm going to put it into a book, because I always wanted to put the training for the children that I did with them somehow into a book, but I had no idea how. And when I did Good Girl Sesky, like my first book, and that was my autobiography of her, and I'd done the training for the horses at the back of it, but it still wasn't what I was wanting. And then when I went on to my Sesky's Farmyard Friends,
yeah.
that was an introduction for the children into like the farm and the countryside and the animals, but that was for 5 to 7 year olds. So I was still trying to get to the bit that I wanted for the older children. And then when I was finishing Sesky's Farmyard Friends, that's when I started writing this. And this is basically what I wanted. Basically that. I won't do another one now harder than this one, if you know what I mean. This is kind of aim of what I was going for.
Yep.
But Deborah put up a wee thing there asking what's my follow-on book from this.
Yeah.
But what I want, I've already started another 2, but as I said earlier, I'm not going to do anything for about a year because I want to really market this one for the schools and everything. But the follow-on one from this one is like a toddler effect. So it's a bit more easier than the Sesky's Farmyard Friends.
Right.
So it'll be a toddler version of this. And then I've got a wee nursery bedtime one, but they're both getting shelved just now. I'm not touching them until another year.
Deborah's got a bet on. She says that you won't wait a year. So
we'll see.
But that's the thing, because we did have a conversation about, the need to spend the time to get out so that people get to know about your book, because it is a challenge, especially, when you are sort of like working, sort of self-publishing something and putting that out, there's a lot of effort required by you to get, for people to get to know. And people get to know about the book. Big publishers, if they were putting something like this out, they would be spending a lot of money on, like splurging some adverts around there, trying to get people to kind of interview you in various places. And so that's the thing, is that you're having to do the legwork to get into schools. But I know that you are more than capable of doing that. You're great at speaking and engaging with, with kids. I mean, all your experiences, stuff that you've done in the past, like you said, that passion that you took from just teaching those elements that you were doing as part of it, and bringing it through now into, okay, here you are, I've got a resource. But taking that into the, into schools or to work in some way with, with kids around that. I think there's so much that you can do.
Because the past few weeks I've been out and about going to shops and farm shops and things to try and get the books in. And I've got them into a few places, which is good. But as you say, it just takes the time and effort. And it's quite hard, as well, as everybody knows, when you're working as well, trying to do different things. But it is a point that we'll do. And it's funny because Deborah and I were talking on Monday at the library. I think it was just before the event started for the children. And she says, the thing is, when you do your 3rd book, that'll help your other 2 books sell, maybe a bit better, because folk then think, oh, wait a minute, she's not just done 1 book. And I said, but that's not really happened with Good Girl Sesky. And Deborah turned around and said, well, have you been advertising it? And I was like, oh, no, not really. So that's your point, like you do need to keep at them all the time.
And it's just, that's the thing, is you just start to get a little bit of momentum going. And before you know it, there's, the other things can, like say, your other books will sell because you've got something there. Because we all know that if we find an author that we like, and we start to read their books, then it's like, oh, what else have they done? What else have we got? Can I go and read, can I go and read something else? So, and and as Deborah says, a book's not just for Christmas, it's there for everyone.
That's right.
So you were going to maybe read us another section, I think, weren't you? Just to kind of give us a little flavour of a little bit in one of your chapters.
Where are we? Oh yeah. Chapter 6 in the book goes on to amazing nature. And it starts, along with the different colours of the trees, fields, surroundings, and many different animals, the countryside is an astonishingly beautiful place to experience. From the changes of life with the newborn animals throughout the seasons and the farmers' never-ending work in the land with the crops and fields, to the colour and smell of freshly cut grass lingering in the air as they go about their harvesting, spending time in the countryside, you can just take it all in. It's a place where nothing seems the same from one day to another. And there will always be something for you to see, discuss and smile about. In the countryside, you will get the chance to see the different wild animals as they tend to roam about here, as it is quieter than in the towns and cities. If you take time to stroll and look, you can see the magical work from even the smallest things glistening in the sun or on a frosty morning. The incredible workings of the spider's web can be seen easily and will astonish you. These can be attached to whatever the spiders find as they work their way around to make the most fantastic design, and this little spider cleverly weaves them together. And that's a wee picture there of it. So no, it's been an enjoyable book to do. As I say, the last month or two of it, I was nearly banging my head off the wall, wanting to get it finished, but it was good to work through.
Excellent, excellent. And I think that's it. You just, those little snippets, your yard, there's that little bit of here, yard, here's a bit of a spider, and we can say that. So,
that's the thing Deborah was just putting up there. A whole lot of feedback has came back at the different shops I've been into, and on Monday at the library, and with the parents and the children. The cover that the book has, it's like that kind of, what type is it? It's like a not velvet, but
yeah, it's just
it's got such a nice feel to it.
Yeah, that is, I mean, it's the matte finish that they use at Ingram's is just, it's just such a lovely feel.
I carried that on through from Sesky's book through to the three of them. And on Monday, they were actually buying the 3 books because I took the other books for sale as well at the book launch for Exploring the Countryside. And each parent and the ladies in the library were saying that they really liked the feel of it too. So that's quite nice, and you know, the colour and everything.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think you've done a great job with it. I think it looks
thank you.
You know, and that's that. I'm just, you know, I'm in awe of the work that you put into something. You know, that's the thing, Janette. You set something, you decide that you're going to do it, and it's like, I might not know how, but I'm going to do it, and that's it. You know, that conversation.
It took me 3 books to get to the one that I wanted. No harm to Sesky. And she's in this book. She's in this book as well, up the back. Yeah, she's in there. Indeed. Yep, she is. She's in there, up the back, talking about her colour to explain to the children the change of colours, and that her name isn't only her name; it's a village in Ireland as well. So yeah. But no, so I got there in the end, the third one.
Yes, you did. You got a trip to go over there, didn't you?
Oh, that's right. That's the thing. See, when I go onto YouTube, where my interviews like this one under indie authors on YouTube, and it's Good Girl Sesky, the interview for that, and then the 12 interviews through the summer. And I actually watched them not that long ago, some of them, and the things that I've said then, I'm actually really pleased, because a lot of the stuff that I said way back in 2021 that I wanted to do, I actually have done it. So I'm really pleased with that as well. So it's good to look back on them. Yeah.
I mean, that's it. It's just amazing what you've been able to do. And that's the thing about, so you writing, you sharing the stories, you sharing your passion for all this.
Yeah.
It's the thing that, if you think that's the bit of then being able to get in front of some children now.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Yeah, because even with Sesky's Farmyard Friends, like, where in the front cover I had, like, when I was lambing with Shaki all day nights, it was, oh my goodness. But there's a picture of the wee lamb on top of the sheep. And when the children see that, they're like, how did that get up there? And I tell them that actually jumped up, and then the mum stood up, and they're like, no way. You know, so they're really, it's the reaction of the children. And the same on Monday evening, because it's just recent, when I was showing the parents and the children that Sesky and Good Girl Sesky, on that picture up here, she's a dark dapple grey, whereas that was when she was 6-year-old. And then when she was 32 years old, she's like pure white, but as we call it, grey in the horses, but white. And they can't believe that they changed that drastic in colour. So it's all things like that, and even to do with the animals in the farm, you know, being bred and grown and all this. The children are fascinated with it.
Yeah. And I think that's it. It's just being able to open up opportunities. So, I mean, for anybody that's watching this, if you've got children that actually love animals, that love to, or that you love animals and you want to get them involved, you want to talk to them about nature, about where their food comes from, about things being sustainable, then this is an ideal opportunity. It's an ideal book really to kind of get people going for that.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. Because the other thing as well is, Deborah's just asked a question there, is this book, like one of the parents that bought the book, she said, I'll actually need to read this as well as my son, because like the information in this, some of it, the parents said they don't actually know. So it actually teaches them as well. So it's a good book, although it's for children. It does, let the parents see what's happening for ones that aren't really involved in the farming or the environment, and recycling, like recycling the rainwater off the roofs into containers for drinking water for the animals. So there is a lot of different people that don't actually think that happens or would do it, so it's good as well for the adults.
yeah, I mean, I could see you hosting, I think we talked about this, hosting a little like countryside club or something like
I
that,
know.
for to get folk
It is on the
involved.
back burner.
But it would be
I
a great
know.
way of actually, you can count this as marketing for your book. This
That
isn't,
is
this
it.
is fine. This is marketing
Yeah.
for your book. And it's a way of,
Uh-huh.
even if you were saying, the opportunity to come in and even do something like this when you're talking to people and telling them a little story about some element of something from
Yeah.
the countryside and get the kids a little
Like the
task to go
project
off,
work, I know. Yeah.
get a task to go off and do, and come back and they can show stuff to you for what they've been, what they've done, what they've learned, get out and about and go and speaking to to other people. Can you imagine
That's
them
it.
getting into the butchers and kind of looking at the thing and saying, I know where that comes from.
I know. That's it. And that's like when I had to approach the butcher, like a local butcher, but actually taught his girl in the riding school many years ago when she was very little. And now she's grown up with her own children. And when I went in and asked him for actual pictures, to make up the chart, it was just such a conversation, And then Michael, my son Michael, it was his friend Gavin that helped again with all the pictures and actually designed the front cover the way I'd wanted it.
Yep.
So, but it is a lot of work goes into it. It's funny when you go in and I say, I just actually need it for a book. And he's like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. I think you should be really proud of yourself. Yes, others, helped you, but it's the vision that you've had, and so that's the thing. It's about, yeah, you've achieved the dream, I suppose, of you've got that book now. So that's
Yeah.
not just for
Yeah.
Christmas, it's here for the rest of your life.
That's it.
But that you can actually now like share that dream that you've had with others, that just kind of like just to find a little bit of inspiration for them in something.
I
And
know.
they're off and running, and they're the kids in particular are going to be interested in lots of different aspects of it. So
That's right. Yeah.
I
Because
really commend you.
I think that's where it all started in the start when my friend Iona was teaching me to ride, and then I thoroughly enjoyed my lessons. And then I wanted to go on and become a BHS accredited coach, which I eventually did. And I think it's the same with this, because I've learned so much over all the years from my way back moving into the farm, then being with Shaki, with his farm, with the sheep and everything, and lambing them that I never ever thought I would ever do. I mean, it was okay lambing, it was okay breeding and doing the foaling, but the lambs are just so much different. I find that harder. But it's just like giving the children the experience to enjoy what I've enjoyed, even if they don't get hands-on experience just now, they can learn it through the books,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know. And I think the exploring the countryside, it's just covered so much in the book, on different aspects. It's not just one thing. And that's the thing I like about it.
Yep. So for any teachers that are out there that might see this, just think of this as a resource for like the project work, as we've been talking about, the opportunities to kind of focus on whether it is about you getting out in the countryside, whether it's about the animals, if it's about farming, if it's about food, if it's about that whole sustainability, about how you look after the rainwater to kind of,
Yeah, that's it.
lots of
Recycling the dung.
yeah.
Makes your flowers go good as well.
Yeah, they always said it was good for the rhubarb, wasn't it?
That's it.
I
Yeah.
do prefer custard myself, though.
Is there anybody wanting to ask anything?
Yeah. So have we got any last questions? We've got a few minutes, so if there's anybody got anything that they want to ask. I know we've got lots of, I mean, Deborah's been busy kind of sharing lots of stuff up here, so she's so yeah.
Have you got things on the chat? Have you got things on the chat, Kim?
Yep, Deborah's on the chat. Jeff, without the author writing the words, books are not created exactly. That's so well said. So
because it was like on Monday night when I was talking to the children, I was explaining about doing the book, and the boy said, "Can anybody be an author?" As I said earlier, I said, "Anybody can." I said, "You just have to put your mind to it and be committed, and it doesn't matter how long it takes." And then he said, and I said to him about Deborah being my editor for the book, and he's like, "What do you need an editor for?" And I said to him, "Well, see how you do your homework at school. You get homework for school, and then you take it back in, and your teacher corrects it." And he's like, "Uh-huh." And I says, "Well, that's why you need an editor, because they need to correct it sometimes too." And he found this like really good. He's thinking, oh, you could see his mind going, you know. And I must admit, I finished off their day with that little thing that I've always liked in all my books and I've ever had since starting my training. And when he kept saying about, "But can I be an author?" And I turned around and I just said to him, "There's a wee saying that I have throughout all my books, and I picked up one day in a little cobbler shop." I said, "I still have it, it's up on the wall here. And it says, what you believe you can achieve." I said, "So if you always think of that, no matter what you're doing through school or jobs or playing," I says, "what you believe you can achieve." And he's like, And I think it is a good thing to think of, you know, because many a time through this book, I looked at that wee sign in the wall and thought, oh.
Yeah. And I think you should be really proud, because that's it. You've held that vision, and that you've kept going. And that's just, it's amazing. You've now got the books there to kind of really sort of prove what you've been able to do. You've been able to kind of just think about it, and you've been able to kind of do that. So
yeah, family reading from the toddlers to the teenagers to the adults and the children in between.
There's one for every age.
Yeah, and the activity book with all the things for them to fill in and everything. Yeah.
That's it. One, you know, there's one for every age and every season.
I know.
I think what we'll do is we'll unmute. We'll let everybody to unmute themselves. We'll give you a little round of applause, and then we'll get the recording stopped. So we'll just ask you can unmute, and we can just we'll say, congratulations, Janette, and it's been lovely to talk to you about it. So just
thank you.
well done.